Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about some software updates that I'd like to see Rivian put out. Rivian have been very good at sending out software updates over the years. They've had really good ones like camp mode, off-road pages, and some others that I like. However, there are some areas where I feel like Rivian could push out a little bit more to help with some of these issues. Rivian has been very good at listening to its customers. I remember I talked about wanting a Christmas mode. Many believed that it wasn't going to happen, and Rivian eventually did that. I'm a Gen 1 owner. I've had it for about 3.5 years, so this point of view is from Gen 1 ownership. The first thing I want to mention is the passive entry. I don't know about you guys, but that's probably the thing that annoys me the most is the keyless entry system that they have. I kind of miss the old school versions where you just walk up to the door, touch the button, that's when it unlocks, and you touch the button, walk away, no problems, no frills. But this active Bluetooth passive entry that Rivian has, it hasn't been ideal. While it has definitely improved over the years, there are some areas where I think it could use some help. One of the things I don't like is if I'm outside the vehicle talking to people, packing the car, or just lingering around the vehicle, that thing just turns on and off consistently. Now, I don't think Rivian has any hardware built in that could mitigate this much, but I was wondering if somehow the phone app could be a way to just temporarily turn off this system. Imagine you're standing, hanging out with people or packing the car. You could simply just get into your phone, into the app, and there's a toggle that turns it off, whether it's for just 30 minutes or indefinitely until you turn it back on. This next one is something the phone app can help with, and this is turning on and off the outlets in the vehicle. There's an option on the screen to turn it on and off to set a timer. That has been very good. There's just been times where I'm away from the vehicle, I forgot to turn it on or want to turn it on or off, or if there's something I want to charge up for just a short amount of time, I could do those while I'm away from the vehicle. There's been cases where I had a refrigerator in there and the timer expired while I was away. It would be nice to just be able to turn that back on for a couple of hours until I get back to the vehicle. So that would be just a nice to have. The next few software updates will have to do with the driver display. While it's very configurable, there's a lot of empty spaces that could be used for information that I use on a regular basis. One of them would be the clock, the trip computer, and just a small display that shows the music or track or audio that you're listening to. While the trip computer is available here, it's a little bit of a hassle to toggle back and forth between your maps and this page just to see how many miles you've driven. Most vehicles just have a constant tiny display of the trip computer here. I don't know about you guys, but I still get range anxiety just trying to compare the miles remaining versus how many miles that I've traveled. So I always like to know that difference, especially after I have a full charge. So right now I'm going off-road. I need to be in off-road mode. This drive is supposed to be about 20 miles long, and there's no way to check how many miles I've driven because this screen doesn't show the trip computer anymore. So in order to see how many miles, I'd have to get out of off-road mode and go into regular all-purpose mode to see the trip computer, because nothing else over here or over here tells me how many miles that I've driven. While the music is available here, most times I'm using the efficiency page, and if this screen is on, then there's no way to know what's playing. So just a tiny little section that shows now playing, and that's all I would need. In off-road mode, with the off-road pages, this information is very important. However many times I'm using my cameras not to hit stuff. So if just some of this information was placed here just during off-road mode, I could have that pitch and roll, for example, shown here while I'm using my cameras to check out where I am. When you're super sideways and you're hanging on to the steering wheel with both hands, you don't really want to be touching buttons on the screen trying to figure out where your wheels are and checking your pitch and roll angles. So right now I need the cameras to see if I'm going to hit the obstacles, but I also want to see my pitch and roll to see if I'm exceeding it. So it'd be nice if I could see both at once. This next one doesn't have to do with the driver display, but what is happening shows up here, and it has to do with adaptive cruise control. Sometimes this is very frustrating when you're using adaptive cruise control and lane keep, and if for some reason it detects that there are no more lanes to follow, it will automatically cancel everything, even adaptive cruise. In that case, if it no longer detects lanes, it should only cancel the lane keep and leave the adaptive cruise control engaged. That way the person behind doesn't think I'm slamming on the brakes, because when it disengages, it starts to come to a complete stop. And it's a little frustrating when it does that. The only way I've found where you can cancel lane keep without canceling adaptive cruise control is to swerve the steering wheel to break it free, and it keeps adaptive cruise engaged. But now you're basically swerving all over the road just to cancel it. So I wish there was a way to just cancel just the lane keep, whether with the stock or something simpler, instead of canceling the entire system. And this brings me to the next concern is, shouldn't there be a way where I could resume my original cruise control speed? If for some reason I cancel, which is often with the Rivian, there's no way to reset it quickly back to the speed you once were. So now you have to accelerate back to the speed you set before and reset it all over again. And why is there no lane keep assist on Highway 395 between Southern California and Mammoth? Those roads are ideal for it, and I really believe they should have had more driver assist available on that road by now. Now on to the main display. On the maps, I think your altitude meter should be on your maps. Many times I'm driving and I start to climb a hill and I don't know, and if I knew that I'm climbing a hill, I would reduce my speed to save energy. But sometimes you don't know, and I think it's logical to have the altitude meter on the map itself. We were just up 7,000 feet. It'd be nice if the altitude meter was constantly on the maps so we could see where and at what point we hit certain altitudes, instead of having to switch back and forth just to see that. Is it just me, but sometimes the network doesn't stick to the ones I picked? If I picked Rivian or Tesla and I set up my route, it's still giving me EVgo, which is the one I do not want to use whatsoever. So why does it not stick to the chargers that I select? Also on the maps would be to have the current weather of where you're driving. After driving so many miles on road trips, it would be just really cool to know the weather conditions of where you currently are. This page is pretty awesome. It will show the actual height the vehicle is and the ground clearance. I just wish it stayed on a little bit longer so I could know what my clearances are. This pitch and roll feature would be very convenient in camp mode. If you try to level the SUV and it is outside of the degrees that it wants, it won't allow you to level it. So while you're looking for your camp spot or where to level your vehicle, if it was right here, it will tell you if you're in the specs or the range that it wants, and then you could start leveling your SUV. If you're old school like me, you hate subscriptions. That's a subscription, a subscription, a subscription. So what I do is I have an old iPhone that has thousands of songs that I've had over the years. I just want to play this, so I just play Bluetooth on here. I guess the downside is there's not enough of a good interaction or integration between my phone and this. So if I want to choose a song, I have to take out my phone and search for it and play the song on here. This only allows you to skip or to pause the songs, but I've had older cars where I could use the main display and search based on artists or playlist or different things like that. So better phone and music integration into the main display would be really awesome. Which leads me to wonder why I can't retrieve my text messages on this screen by now. This is 2025. We should be able to check our messages on the screen. I had an older car, 10 years old, that allowed me to have more than one Bluetooth device connected to the system at once. So I would have my main device that does music, text messages, and phone calls, and then my wife's phone would just be for music whenever she's in the car, and it wouldn't disconnect my phone. But here, depending on what you pick, it disconnects the other one, so you can only do one phone at a time. The next software update I'd like to see, maybe a little bit more tricky, but I like to call it the 3 C's: creep, crawl, and coast. I drove a Lucid the other day that had all three of these features, and I could see valuable reasons for each of those, something that you could choose depending on your driving situation. For the creep feature, sometimes you're very close to an object and you just want to slowly get closer to it, but it's really hard to modulate when it keeps doing this. So if it had a creep feature, all you'd need to do is hold the brakes and then it would slowly go up to the object without hitting it. This happens in like parking lots or off-road sometimes. You just want to go slow and get closer to the object. A crawl feature would be very helpful in off-road situations where you could set the speed limit to a very low speed and then it will slowly go over obstacles or go downhill, or just situations where you don't want to be modulating the accelerated pedal and fighting with the hold feature or the regen braking. You just want it to go at a simple speed. The coasting feature would be ideal if you want to take full control of how the vehicle behaves and not rely on regenerative braking. This could be if you're driving on a windy road and you want to have a little bit more control about what you do around the corners. If you're driving in bad weather and you don't want the regenerative braking to be too aggressive, if the driving conditions change really quickly, or if you're passing someone on the highway and you have to increase your speed. Sometimes when I go around a vehicle, the regenerative braking, quote unquote, slams on the brakes and it seems like I'm brake checking the person that I just passed. So coasting would be pretty good to have in those situations. I do miss having cornering lights around windy roads at night. The Rivian doesn't have it, but what if there could be a software update where, based on your steering angle at a certain speed, the lower fog lights could turn on. This is for Gen 1 vehicles. Gen 2, I believe, has much better lights. But in Gen 1, it's hard to see off to the side. So if the fog lights could turn on when you make a hard right or a hard left turn to help you see around corners. Why do these headlights never turn off? If you're parked at night, it never automatically turns off. Most cars turn it off in about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. The only way to turn it off is to either use the lever or get out. Even the rears stay on. So there's no way to be discreet at night. Sometimes you forget that it's on and you're there for 15-20 minutes with the headlights on. I know this one is wishful thinking, and I know Rivian doesn't have the hardware installed to have something like this, but I do miss the kick to open feature. Many SUVs, if you stand close to the rear tailgate with your key in your pocket, it will open up the tailgate for you if you have heavy loads in your hand. I'm wondering if somehow Rivian can use the parking sensors as those sensors, where you could stand beside certain specific ones and stand there for about 3 seconds and then it opens as long as you have the key or your phone in your pocket. Maybe there's a lot more that goes into that, but it's just a thought, wishful thinking. There are times when I have a passenger in the front seat and I'm walking away from the vehicle for a short period of time, or if I leave the vehicle before they did. If I have the keys, it just locks them inside and they no longer have access to the features, or are they able to do anything with the vehicle. And if they come out, they cannot get back in because the doors lock right after they leave. So there should be a feature where there's a delayed locking whenever I walk away, and it senses a passenger, so they still have access to the vehicle to do what they need to until they're ready to leave. I'd like a power button. Just a button somewhere there that kills the headlights, the AC, the radio, all the sensors. Just something to keep the car quiet while you're done with it, and the AC and the radio doesn't have to keep turning back on every time you open the door. So a simple power button. The AC presets don't seem to save whether or not we close the vents or not. My wife always has to come in here and turn them off. So even in these presets, it doesn't save whether she turns them off or not. So those are just some of the software updates that I think Rivian should look into. They don't have to. I'm just one person. But it would be nice if all of us wanted some of those features and Rivian would eventually listen to us. And they've been very good at listening to their customers, as I've experienced. So let me know in the comments if there's others that you think about, or some of these that you agree with, or some of these that you don't even agree with. But these are just some of the ones I've experienced that I would like to see. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this.